Good Wednesday morning, everyone. Glad to see another day this morning. I'm blessed. Some people didn't wake up this morning. Really quick, I want to go over the chapters. Well, actually, I meant to say I watched a video on YouTube talking about chapters 9 through 11, the last few chapters of Ecclesiastes. And by the way, the pastor I watch on YouTube, he mentioned that the phrase under the sun, which I tell people all the time, like Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun, he said is quoted 29 times in the book of Ecclesiastes. And also, the phrase under the sun means away from God, as far as wrong things, sin, and things that are pleasing to man. So that basically really means away from God, not in God's area, or not in relation to God. So I want to discover some key verses out of chapter 10, because it talks about a lot of things, and I want to look at the the verses where it talks about, once again, fools and wise people. It starts off saying, dead flies purify the perfumer's ointment and cause it to give off a foul odor. So does a little folly to one respected for wisdom and honor. Verse 2 says, a wise man's heart is at his right hand, but a fool's heart at his left. Even when a folly walks along the way, he lacks wisdom, and he shows everyone that he is a fool. If the spirit of the ruler rises against you, do not leave your post, for conciliation pacifies great offenses. Verse 5 says, there's an evil I have seen under the sun, as an error proceeding from the ruler. Folly is folly is set in great dignity, while the rich set in a lowly place. I have seen servants on horses, while princes walk on the ground like servants. He who digs a pit will fall into it, and whoever breaks through a wall will be bitten by a serpent. He who quarries stones may be hurt by them, and he who splits wood may be endangered by it. If the axe is dull and one does not sharpen the edge, then he must use more strength, but wisdom brings success. Verse 11 says, a serpent may bite when it is not charmed. The babbler is no different. The words of a wise man's mouth are gracious, but the lips of a fool shall swallow him up. And let me see. Yeah, like I said, verse 12, the words of a wise man's mouth are gracious, but the lips of a fool shall swallow him up. The words of his mouth begin with foolishness, and the end of his talk is raving madness. A fool also multiplies words. No man knows what is to be. Who can tell him what will be after him? The labor of fools wearies them, for they do not even know how to go to the city. Woe to you, O land, when your when your king is a child, and your princess feasts in the morning. Blessed are you, O land, when your king is a son of nobles, and your princes feast at the proper time, for strength and not drunkenness. Because of laziness, the building decays, and through idleness of hands, the house leaks. Verse 19, a feast is made for laughter, and wine makes merry, or to be happy and encouraged. But money answers all things. Verse 20 then says, do not curse the king even in your thought. Do not curse the rich even in your bedroom. For a bird of the air may carry your voice, and a bird in flight may tell the matter. So, first of all, like I said, it talks about, it's kind of similar to Proverbs, because it's by the way written by the same character, author, Solomon. And Ecclesiastes, by the way, the title of the book, basically means preacher. It's a Hebrew word that talks about, means preacher. So, but similar to Proverbs, it starts off talking about a lot of things that talk about a fool and then what makes the opposite a wise person. Now, let me say this. Verse 14, when I watched the pastor this morning, he broke down in verse 14, simply talks about where it says, a fool also multiplies words. No man knows what is to be. Who can tell him what will be after him? He said basically that's the foolish person who wants to be heard, for example. They're going to keep on saying things and not caring what they say. They're going to keep on, and then eventually they're going to think about it and eventually keep talking, saying stupid, foolish things because they want to kind of get to your head and they want to be heard and seen. And I've kind of done that myself in the past, but I'm more wise now. And actually, a lot of people, everybody in the world has been down that road. But mainly, the verse I want to look at is verse 19. The verse that a lot of people misquote and take out of context these days, but I just got the true understanding of it based on what Solomon is talking about, not only in the book, but in this particular chapter. So, first of all, I want to read, because I went to a website and looked up and got information about verse 19. It says, the partying king of verse 18 thinks he can fix all the disasters of his reign by raising taxes. Then it says, I don't know why they say it on me. Then it says, we must remember once again that Solomon is speaking of the things the way they are on earth. This is speaking of kings who have neglected their office. They're spending their time laughing and drinking. On this earth, there is need for money. Without it, you cannot pay rent or the utilities. You need money for bills and food. Having enough money to live helps in your marriage as well. The love of money is sin. And that goes back to 1 Timothy 6 and 10. For the love of money is the root of all evil. Even though it's more that it also says, but I'm just mentioning that part because that's what I'm talking about now, money. Then it says to work and make enough money to provide for your family is honorable. The king is actually provider of all his people. It's doubly important that he stays sober and provides for his people. Now, basically, that's breaking down what verse 19 talks about. Because a lot of people don't even look at a feast is made for laughter and wine makes merry. They just look at the last line that says, but money answers all things. And also, the thing about it is that the pastor I listened to, he broke it down in a different way from what I just read. He was basically saying, when he read it, from Solomon's viewpoint, going back to the phrase, under the sun, because under the sun means away from God. And he even said, the pastor I listened to, he said that some Christian people could a lot of times be seen as considered as atheists. What I mean by that is, like, let's say me. I'm a Christian believer, but if I'm sitting here and I'm doubting God and I'm not living like I trust and have a relationship with God, then you might as well say I'm an atheist. Like, because I'm acting and living like I don't serve a God, or I'm acting and living like I don't believe and trust in God when I'm going through things, that's kind of like saying that I'm living life as an atheist. Like, I know that there's a God, but I'm just not truly believing and trusting in who I say and claim that I believe in and love. So the thing is here that what the pastor broke down is, I'm trying to remember it exactly. He was saying, like it says, a feast is made for laughter and wine makes merry. So Solomon is talking about how life is being made. I mean, how life is being lived under the sun, meaning that people, the feast is made for laughter, dealing with the kings and things that he quoted there. And wine makes merry, meaning people get happy, and you know how people may sit there at a bar or around the house, wherever, they simply drink alcohol, wine, vodka, whatever it may be, to enjoy themselves, to have a good time. Then when it says, but money answers all things, that's not necessarily saying the way we take it out of context. That's not saying, by the way, money answereth all things, because by the way, the conjunction here, but, it's three conjunctions, and, but, or. We're talking about but in this case. But means you can say something, then but comes into play, and but means the complete opposite. You can say, we were going north at first, but that means now you're changing the story around. But we were going the wrong way and had to turn around. Now we're going south. So in this case, you say again, a feast is made for laughter, and wine makes merry. But money answers everything. So what let me say this. Solomon is basically summing up that you can't just use money for let's say alcohol, and to make the king to make a feast for things and to have a good time and things like that, because like I read off the website, it's Bible, Bible, a dash, like a line in between, then studies, studys.org, and it breaks down every all the verse in the Bible. You just have to go to the book you're coming out from and the chapter, then it breaks every verse down verse by verse. So it broke down here what Solomon is saying, that but money answereth all things. So actually the way a lot of people say it may be true, but the way Solomon is clearly breaking it down, so when people look at the verse so they can make sure they're right, is he's saying a feast is made for laughter and wine makes merry, but money answereth all things, or everything. That's basically Solomon saying that, true, you may use money for a feast to have a good time, and don't forget the alcohol and food and everything, by the way, but he's also saying, but by the way, money answereth all things. So you can't just sit here and say you're going to sit here and decide to have a good time and spend money on alcohol and a feast and things like that, because you got other important things as well to pay for. Like I read earlier, you have bills, you have you got kids to take care of, you got utilities, you got a card note, you got your insurance a month, you got all these different bills to pay for. Now if you're rich, it makes it a little bit easier, but I'm just paraphrasing, rich or poor, whoever, you have bills to pay for. The world don't care how rich you are. It will be easier for you to pay bills the more money you have, but the fact is you still got to pay bills. Just because you're rich don't mean the world going to say, hey, Tom Brady, LeBron James, whoever, you don't have to pay because you're rich. No, you still got to pay. It just makes it a little bit easier because you got millions and billions of dollars. But that's basically what the verse breaks down and means. Because like the pastor was saying, his viewpoint, he was saying that Solomon is breaking down the whole book, what life is under the sun, meaning for the people who don't have a relationship, people who want to do what they want to do, people who are away from God, people who don't love God, people who don't trust God, people who don't believe in God. That's what Solomon is talking about in the whole entire book of Ecclesiastes. Once again, when the quote under the sun is quoted 29 times, and back in chapter 1, he quotes, "There's nothing new under the sun." That's why I tell people all the time, like when he says, let me go to it. Chapter 1, and I'm about to close out. Like he says right here, he says in verse 9, that which has been is what will be. That which is done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. Verse 10 says, is there anything of which is may be said, see, this is new? It has already been in ancient times before us. Verse 11 then says, there is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of things that are to come by those who will come after. So I'm just summing up saying this. So in other words, people have to think about the fact all this killing and nonsense going on in the world, it ain't nothing new about it. It happened before in King David's days and Solomon, all these other people in the Bible. It's going to continue to happen until the Father sends his Son, Jesus Christ, back here to save the world. So I basically, to a certain point, kind of broke down what the whole entire book of Ecclesiastes is as far as the about what it means. Ecclesiastes means preacher. Then what the quote, the words under the sun mean away from God. But actually, of course, I was mainly focused on verse 10, verse 19 about but money answers all things, breaking down what it truly means. And actually, I'm glad the Spirit just allowed me to say this, because actually, let me say this too. This is what I forgot to say. I knew it was something. Don't get me wrong. Money does answer all things. But at the same time, for the people out there that are in love with money, money can't do everything for you. You want to know why I say that, or you want to know what I mean? Is money can't stop you from leaving this earth. You want to know why? Because like Job said, man born of a woman, which is everybody, because everybody has to come out of a woman, your mother, is but a few days. Then we were born to live forever. But since Adam disobeyed God in Genesis 3, we all eventually have to die. So what I'm summing up is, money can't buy you eternal life on earth here. We have to die. But eventually, you will have eternal life either in heaven, paradise, or eternal torment, hell. And it's other things, like money can't buy you peace. If you want peace, you have to sit there and you have to have the Spirit in you. If you stressing out all the time, like Isaiah 26:3 says, he that keep his mind on him, he'll keep thee in perfect peace. So if I'm stressing out and I know that I serve a God who is able, but if I decide in my head to stress out about this, or me being frustrated about this and that, then I automatically am saying I don't want the peace that God has already gave me. Just like Solomon had asked God for wisdom and understanding and knowledge. So, first of all, you can't get something unless you ask God. At the same time, though, if God freely gives you something, like, let me just give God, Cameron the talent to play the guitar, even though he knows how to play the drums and sing now. That hasn't happened yet because I'm not interested in playing the guitar for right now, but I'm just paraphrasing, saying if God decided to give me that gift as well, then that's how God works and blesses certain people at times. But for right now, I can bowl, play the drums, and sing and do other few things. But I'm just saying that money can't, like, some of the people that don't have no peace or joy are the richest folks in the world. They out here talking crazy. They out here doing stuff. It's some regular people out here that are not poor or not rich. We in the middle. We struggle to make it at times, but other times we got money to buy food and groceries and stuff. But I'm just saying that at the end of the day, money can't, it's a lot of stuff money can't buy you. Money can't buy you spiritual things is all I'm saying. Love, joy, peace, happiness, grace, mercy, things like that. Money cannot buy you because it's something that money has no involvement with it. Like God's grace and mercy. Grace and mercy has nothing to do with money. Because God's grace and mercy, the definition of God's grace is Him deciding to put up with us and bless us when we already don't deserve to be blessed in the first place. Then God's mercy is when we should have been punished, but He's long-suffering and merciful, so He keeps on dealing with us and putting up with us. So money can't answer that. because you can't pay God in the first place. That was basically God saying, I don't care about money. I'm going to deal with you, Cameron, and all your sins that you keep on doing. I'm going to decide to put up with you through my grace and mercy. So, once again, when it says money answers all things, that's not necessarily talking about it could buy you peace and grace and mercy and things like that. No, it's talking about as far as paying your bills and doing important things. That's what money was made for. But and back to what I said earlier, where it answers all things, meaning that it's important. You need money, but don't just sit there and think that it's important. As far as trying to get drunk and have a good time at your buddy's house with a whole bunch of guys for a Super Bowl party or NBA playoffs or championships game and get drunk, because it's more to money than that. So I didn't preach a 21-minute sermon. I did not expect it to be this long at all, maybe 7-8 minutes, but I hope you encouraged by God's message this morning. May God bless you on this wonderful Wednesday. You and your family, truly, God bless you.